Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Find Your Model Health, the official podcast of Shemaine's Model Health for those looking to optimize their long-term health and weight goals and figure out what works for their body and how it does actually work. I'm Shemaine Linney. I am your host. I'm a biohacker and fitness and nutrition expert. I'm very happy to have you back with me for another week. And this week's episode is going to be pretty quick. We're going to follow on from our sleep series and wrap it up with this episode. But before I go on, I must remind you that the information in these podcasts is for informational purposes only and not to be taken as medical advice. Please consult with your healthcare practitioner before you make any lifestyle changes. Okay, so this week we're looking at naps, and like I said, it's going to be a pretty quick podcast. As you can imagine, there's not too much to say about naps, but I do want to give you a bit of some tips and a bit of insight on napping. So, I'm not a big napper, but I will nap when I feel I absolutely need it. And I'm pretty intuitive, pretty in tune with my body. I'll know when my body's like, oh, hell no, we need a nap. Like, nobody look at me. I'm going to lie down for a couple of minutes. And I usually have to be in a pretty fatigued state for that to happen. And I'll feel very inflamed. And my brain will be inflamed. And like I've said in the other podcasts, even my teeth will be inflamed. And that's when I know I need to just take those 20 minutes and just rest my eyes and hopefully even get into a light sleep for the 20 minutes. So the secret to napping is to prevent yourself from falling deeper than into that N1 or N2 stages of sleep. And we discussed those stages in, I think, Biohacking Sleep episode 1. So your naps should last no longer than 20 minutes. Longer naps usually lead to grogginess and making you even more tired because you've got into that deeper sleep stage. And this so-called sleep inertia, this grogginess is caused by the increased production of adenosine. If you wish to catch up for lost sleep, or say accelerate your brain performance and your cognition, it can sometimes be helpful to sleep for a little bit longer, but I generally don't advise it. Like, focus on getting your good night's sleep, and if you absolutely need to, stick with your 20 minutes. In cases where you need to catch up for lost sleep, let's say you were up with a sick kid during the night, or you were traveling or something, it's best to plan out your nap so it lasts for a complete cycle, so approximately 90 minutes. The best time to nap is about 6 to 8 hours after waking up. So that's when your circadian starts to dip in alertness and sleep starts to increase, or your sleep hormones start to slowly increase. So studies show that naps can improve memory and reverse the performance deteriorating effects caused by sensory overload. So stress, internal and external stressors. In studies conducted at the Sleep Laboratory of the University of Loughborough, it was discovered that naps lasting less than 15 minutes reduced mistakes by 9% in a monotonous driving test. In the same test, people who ingested 200 milligrams of caffeine before the nap made 34% less mistakes. And you're like, hold on, what? What's that? You're having coffee before you have a nap? Well, check it out. Combining caffeine and napping is a very efficient combination because it takes about 20 to 45 minutes for caffeine to kick in properly. So a cup of coffee right before napping doesn't begin to have an effect until after your nap is over, which means that it won't negatively affect your sleep. You'll get that nice little cat nap, so you feel nice and re-energized and refreshed, and then boom, your caffeine kicks in, so you've got that up leveling of cognitive performance there. So super smart if you find that you're very fatigued, but you maybe have a test or a lot of work to do, you're taking your nap and you're having your coffee. Of course, I'm going to recommend organic mushroom coffee if that's your thing, but definitely something to remember. So let's look at these, and you can take these notes down. So tips for an efficient nap. Okay. Unless you need to and you're playing the game super smart with your caffeine, otherwise you want to avoid caffeine and other stimulants 1 to 4 hours before your nap, okay? With that exception if you're playing the game super smart. So that's where you would drink a cup of coffee or ingest 200 milligrams of caffeine immediately before your nap. Set the alarm to 20 minutes or 90 minutes. So 20 minutes with or without caffeine, or 90 minutes without caffeine completely, because you don't want to be in that 90-minute cycle and then get woken up by the caffeine, because that's just going to ruin it. Okay, so then you want to make sure that you're covering your eyes with a sleeping mask if that filters out distracting light, unless you have really good blackout blinds. So we discussed the effects of light in the previous podcasts, but if you're napping during the day and there's a chance that any light could disrupt you, pop on a sleeping mask. You can get some really good coverage sleeping masks with some nice breathable materials on Amazon that are not too expensive. And if you're in a noisy environment, you can use earplugs, or you can experiment with headphones and white noise or pink noise, or like binaural waves or something like that. But I really do think it's best to get in the habit of just falling asleep in silence, because in that sense you're just silencing your mind and everything rather than still having noise in the background. Okay, breathe in deeply and calmly. So ideally, we want you to inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, just until you're falling asleep. So ideally, you're impersonating someone who's sleeping and how they would breathe. Recommendations usually are to try napping with on a hard mattress if you can, or some sort of hard surface, to help release endorphins and increase blood flow and stuff like that. But those are my best tips. Now, I did want to look really quick because I'm traveling soon in October. When I say soon, I mean the end of October, but a lot of people are traveling the last few months, and I get questions like, do you sleep on an airplane, or do you just wait till you get to your destination? So you can sleep on an airplane. Obviously, everyone is very individual. I tend to not sleep on an airplane because I have a small child and I'm always trying to keep my eye on him. But if I was, say, traveling alone, I would love to sleep on an airplane, because a flight is a chance to kind of make up for lost sleep and just, again, silence your mind and rest yourself. Again, it can be easier said than done, but there are some tips that have been collected in the biohacking world that might make it easier for people to get into a good sleep on an airplane, or even on a train or a boat or whatever, if you're driving or someone's driving you on a long journey. So here's some tips. Okay, you want to avoid stimulants approximately 6 hours before the flight. Use the toilet before boarding. Like that's just smart. Regardless of sleep, that's just really smart. Choose a window seat. That way you don't have to make room for passengers who need to get up and down for the bathroom or whatever. Make more leg room by selecting a seat in the exit row if you can, or try use your check-in time to pick an ideal seat on the plane. That just gives you a little bit of extra room. Sometimes I will look out when I'm flying. If at the back of the plane I notice as we're flying that nobody is in the back few seats, I'll just move. The air hostesses generally don't have an issue with that, and it just allows me to get that extra room. Avoid noisy seats, especially those beside the toilet or the plane's engine. So center of the plane is always going to be best, though, for EMFs and other electromagnetic frequencies. Wear comfortable clothes. Try not wear clothes that are too tight, that are restrictive and will cut off circulation, especially if you're someone that suffers with fluid retention or swelling when traveling. I do, so I'll try not wear tight, restrictive clothing around my ankles or around my waist or anything. You can try supplements to improve your ability to fall asleep, and we did discuss a lot of those in the previous podcasts, but my go-tos might be 5-HTP or L-theanine. Someone else might go to melatonin, but as I mentioned before, melatonin does not really do anything for me at all. If you want, you can tell the flight attendant and the person next to you that you intend to fall asleep, and please do not disturb me. You can even lie and say, I was up all night, I'm exhausted. Remove as many disturbances as you can, again, from your surroundings. So like your sleeping mask and your earplugs. From my experience, noise cancelling headphones with proper ear muffs work better. So I tend to really like Skull Candies. They have some nice noise cancelling headphones, and they're not too expensive either. Try to fall asleep the moment you board the plane, because takeoff and the initial ascent, they last long enough so that by the time the food cart or the drink cart goes around, you already feel like you've had some rest. Try to keep your seat in an upright position though, and wear your seatbelt. If you recline your seat, there's a chance that the flight attendant might wake you up for some reason or another, when that little annoying beeping goes off. So that obviously applies to takeoff and landing. So you want to learn to sleep with your backrest in a vertical position and the seatbelt, of course, fastened. Get yourself one of those neck rests. So even if your head does fall, it's falling comfortably and it's not putting too much strain on the neck muscles either. We don't want you waking up with a cramp or hurting yourself. So those are my best tips for a nap. I do like napping, like I said, and I will recommend it to my clients, but unless you find that napping improves your cognitive performance when you really need it, I try to just keep it to when I'm really feeling fatigued and I absolutely need it. I don't really use it too much for cognitive performance. I try to get the bulk of my heavy work done in the morning, so I don't really need it. By the time my cortisol starts to dip, I've already got the majority of my work done. Anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful. Short and sweet. Go back and listen to the other biohacking sleep podcasts if you get a chance. I know it's a lot to take on, there's a lot to listen to, but it is very helpful, and you can always take little bits away from it that are going to improve your health lifestyle. So enjoy the rest of your week. Let me know if anyone has any requests for topics on podcasts over the next few weeks. Take care, and I'll chat next week. Bye.